Today is our last section of chapter 21, and we're going to finish up the digestive system today. We're going to talk about food and digestion. Um, and the definition of food uh, is any material that contributes to the growth and the repair of the body, or it supplies energy. So anything that is able to contribute to growth and repair and supply energy is considered a food. So some of the things that may not necessarily always fit into your definition of food, but this is the way it is defined. So according to this definition, things like minerals and vitamins, carbohydrates, fats, proteins are all foods. Now in digestion, we have different kinds of digestion. We have mechanical breakdown of large particles into smaller ones is called physical digestion. This happens, for instance, starts in your mouth as you chew, and then it continues to be broken down as it gets into the stomach, where more digestive enzymes break it down even farther, and then even still farther in the small intestine. But this is part of physical digestion. So it's the mechanical breakdown of food into smaller pieces. So your teeth, your stomach, muscles, all the different enzymes that go to break it down into smaller pieces are all part of this mechanical digestion. Now here are a little more detail, just to kind of little summarize what each of the things do in part of or contributing to physical digestion. You know, your lips and cheeks, they keep the food between your teeth while you're chewing, otherwise it'd keep falling out. Your tongue moves the food around so that you can chew, also helps with swallowing. And then you have all these different structures. Each one's doing its job. Like the pharynx moves food to the esophagus, and then the esophagus moves the food to the stomach, and then the stomach churns everything up into a semi-liquid that will enter the small intestine, where additional digestive juices are added from the pancreas and from the liver, and then this is where absorption begins. And then we have the large intestine, where it absorbs water, minerals, and some of the vitamins, so that they're not going to literally to waste, and then it prepares your waste so that you can be eliminated from your body. Now, chemical digestion is on the molecular level, and in the molecular level, the large food particles are no longer large anyway. They're on the small, real molecule level, and this is where these molecules are broken down into maybe those building blocks that we learned about. For instance, you know that protein was made up of amino acids, carbohydrates were made up of monosaccharides, fats were made up of fatty acids and things like that. So that's chemical digestion in that phase. So what's used for that, or what's important for that, are enzymes to break those down still farther. Now, what are enzymes? Well, enzymes are proteins that break down the food into smaller molecules. They themselves are a protein, but they enable other food particles to be broken down into smaller pieces. And here are some of the common digestive enzymes that some of them we've already talked about. Remember, we talked about amylase, that was part of your saliva that helps to break down starch into monosaccharides. Lipase is an enzyme that breaks down fats into fatty acids. And then pepsin, which we talked about as being part of the gastric juices in the stomach, help to break down protein into amino acids. So here is kind of a summary of all the different enzymes and what they do, and into what they break them down into. So we've kind of talked about all these, and where the enzyme comes from, where it's produced, and you can see those enzymes that start in the mouth. The only one is the amylase. Then in the stomach, we're adding pepsin, and then from the liver, we're getting lipase that breaks down fats. The pancreas produces the ones down there on the bottom that help to break down proteins as well. So you can see that each one is contributing their digestive juices or enzymes to help break these food substances down into the smallest parts that can be absorbed by the blood. Now, water, besides oxygen, water is the most important molecule for human survival. Obviously, you need to have oxygen. You can't go very long without that. But water is another one. You can't go very long, only a few days without water. And most chemical reactions that occur in the body do so in an aqueous environment. So in an aqueous environment means that water is acting like a solvent, and it is used to dissolve materials and make them easier to digest. Water maintains the fluid balance that's in our body, staying hydrated, we would call it. It's also is important in controlling the pH of the blood so that it will be the right pH, the right acid or base, so that certain things can be dissolved. And remember, we talked about that being an important part even in respiration. And then water, we know, is very important in our body's ability to regulate its temperature. And if you get too hot, you perspire. So water is very important to cool. Carbohydrates are kind of main part of our diet, and the most economical and abundant foods usually are rich in carbohydrates. Just about everywhere in the world, the things they eat the most of are usually rich in carbohydrates. Carbohydrates include sugars, which are a source of quick energy, and then they also include the more complex molecules of starch, which in our body is digested by amylase. Disaccharides are digested to monosaccharides by other enzymes that are in your small intestine, and the intestinal lining secretes these enzymes and then just keeps breaking them down into different kinds of carbohydrates or monosaccharides. Okay, so let's go on to fats. Fat digestion it occurs in the small intestine. So nothing has happened in the mouth, nothing's happened in the stomach. By the time it gets to the small intestine, that's when fats are going to be digested. And bile causes the fats to form droplets. It breaks the fat into tiny little droplets, and this separation into small droplets is called emulsification, or here we say it's been emulsified by the bile. That's one of the functions of bile, is to break it into little tiny droplets. The enzymes called lipase, secreted by the pancreas, is going to digest the fats into glycerol and fatty acids. Okay, so the enzyme that breaks down fats is called lipase, and the two pieces that are formed when a fat molecule is broken down, it forms a molecule of glycerol and then some fatty acids. Now, the fats used to form the cell membrane, form protective membranes, around like nerve cells, form certain kind of hormones. They cushion delicate structures and provide energy. So fat's really important in your diet. And the fat that's not used immediately by the body is stored in adipose cells. So the fat cells are called adipose cells. This is where the fat is actually stored if it's not immediately used by the body. Proteins are not only the part of the living cell, but are also part of non-living structures such as your hair and your nails. They make up the matrix of connective tissue that we've learned in previous chapters. Most enzymes and some of the hormones are also proteins. And protein digestion begins in the stomach, and it's broken down by the enzyme that's in the gastric juices called pepsin. And it's broken down into amino acids, and so we get all these different kind of amino acids that our body can use to build many different kinds of proteins. But pepsin, by the way, is just the only enzyme that's produced by the stomach. Most of them are produced by structures that empty into the small intestine or by the small intestine itself. Okay, so let's go on to some other things that were classified as food. We had vitamins and minerals, and a mineral is defined as any inorganic, in other words, it's not made by living things necessarily, an inorganic substance that's found naturally in the soil. So what's in the soil when we grow our foods is that's our source of minerals that we need for our body. And here are some of the important minerals that you can find in the soil, or in like calcium, iron, and sodium. Iron, we know that has to do with hemoglobin. Sodium has to do, our nervous system needs that. And potassium as well is needed for the nervous system. So here are the kind of like the functions of these different minerals that we need in our diet. This is not the whole list. This is just maybe the most important ones. We know calcium, for instance, in the middle part there is a major part of our bones and teeth, necessary for blood clotting formation, things like that. Iron is part of hemoglobin that we've already learned about, and many enzymes. If you don't have enough iron in your diet, you are anemic, we say. Iodine, we get that usually from iodized salt, as it says there in the second column. But if you live and eat a lot of seafood, you get plenty iodine that way. But it's an important hormone produced by your thyroid gland. And then as you go down the bottom two, you have like sodium and potassium. Uh, Notice that it says important in fluid balance, nerve cell function. Uh, so, all these are very important to good health. Now, vitamins are organic substances that are necessary for normal metabolism. In other words, for your body to carry on normal metabolism, you need to have vitamins, and you get these in the foods that you eat. Some of the vitamins are water soluble, and some are oil soluble or fat soluble. And here are some of the important vitamins, by no means the whole list. We have vitamin A, and we'll talk about these in the next slide. Vitamin K, vitamin B1 and B2, vitamin C. Some of you probably have heard more about that one. That's ascorbic acid, is vitamin C. And here is a partial list of vitamins and their function. You go down to the second one, vitamin D. That one is, as you look way over two columns to the functions, essential for absorbing calcium from your intestines so that you can grow healthy and strong bones and teeth. Well, let's see. Let's look at, like B1 is a coenzyme. Some of these vitamins are help out enzymes to do their job, and so they're called a coenzyme. So B1 is one of those that's a coenzyme, and it's involved in carbohydrates and amino acid metabolism. And then over on the right, they have what disease you would have if you didn't have enough of that. And some of those you've probably heard of, those, if you don't have enough. Like the very bottom one, vitamin C, was first discovered by sailors that would not have enough like citrus fruits along, and they would develop something called scurvy, which is just your healing, wounds and things like that would heal slowly, and weak blood vessels and bones. And so they learned that if they would take citrus fruits along, they could minimize that or eliminate that. And the favorite citrus that was often taken along were limes, and so these sailors were often called limeys because of that. But you can look up the whole list. This is a good place if you have any questions about what a vitamin does. This is a good place to look for what its source, where do you get it from, what its function is, and what happens if you don't have enough. Now, a healthy diet is probably the most important thing that you can remember about a healthy diet is moderation. Even Paul said moderation in all things. That should be the center of a Christian diet. Not too much of anything, not too little of anything, just the right amount. So an appropriate diet is going to include a variety of foods in your daily that you eat each day. And we talk about our 5 basic food groups. We have milk and dairy. I think it's towards the top in this one. Then we have meat, including fish would fit into that one. Legumes, nuts, and seeds also are sources of protein. Number 3, we have fruits. Number 4, you would have vegetables. And then 5, you'd have whole grains. That would be like bread and pasta, rice and cereals and things like that. So the key is to eat plenty of raw fruits and vegetables, to drink more water and fruit juices and milk and things like that, as opposed to candy and soda. So in other words, you need to restrict our sugar intake from the sugary things that can be quite tasty, I'll have to admit. Um, and there should be no one food that you should be overemphasizing. Now, sometimes certain diets tend to do that, but that is not a good long-term solution to good health. Maybe for the moment, but you have to still going to have to ultimately learn how to eat healthy and with healthy proportions. And then to make sure that you have enough of the vitamins and minerals that you need in your body, you may need to supplement with multivitamins and minerals. I don't know if the good health that I've experienced over many years has anything to do with the fact that my father, when I was in lower elementary, happened to be a door-to-door salesman, and one of the things they sold was vitamins, and was vitamins and minerals. And since that time till now, I've daily taken vitamins and minerals. So if there's something lacking in my diet, it kind of helps to fill out what I'm missing. Now, when you look on a container of any food product today, they are required to put these nutrition facts. You'll notice that the parts of it, they first will tell you what the serving size is, and then they will also tell you how many servings are in this container that this label is attached to. They tell you how many calories that you will get per serving. And then underneath that, they list all the different types of nutrients that are in it and how much of your minimum daily amount you're getting in this product or this food source alone. And then they also list your vitamins that are part of that. So in this particular one right here, you're getting 20% of your minimum daily amount of calcium by consuming one serving of this product. I don't know exactly what it came from, but that is a food label right there. And then down on the bottom is even more details if you need to have more details. But learning how to read nutrition facts sometimes is kind of surprising. If you're, for instance, are trying to minimize the amount of trans fats and saturated fats from your diet, then you can look at these labels and tell you, is this a good thing to eat, or should I be substituting something else for that? And then let's finish up here with the basal metabolic rate. This is like the base metabolic rate, the number of calories that you would need to maintain a normal body function while you're at rest. So in other words, this isn't the amount of calories that you need if you were exercising or working hard or anything like that. This is just the amount to keep you healthy. And so it's dependent upon the height, as you can see. So obviously the bigger you are, the more calories it's going to take to maintain a normal healthy body. There's a difference between men and women. In addition to height, there's also the fact that men and women just need different amounts of calories to function. And then the amount of calories that's not given on this chart at all does depend upon what age you are. As you are growing and maturing into adulthood, you need more calories at that point, but then once you become an adult, then the number of calories that's required to be healthy becomes less, and it depends on what kind of job you have. And then by the time you get to my age, you need to have fewer calories still, and you can still be healthy. You can't keep eating the rest of your life like you do as a teenager, otherwise you will be much larger than you are right now. And that takes us to the end of chapter 21.